Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, Syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. Today we're talking about business solutions for today's business challenges with nationally recognized business solution expert, Sherry Flint. Welcome to the show, Sherry.
Thank you very much.
Well, you know, business owners, remember 70% of America's business owners are family-owned business, and we're always trying to say only the big boys get the kind of treatment that they deserve. But when I'm looking at the kind of practice that you put together, this is a very integrated and somewhat easy, surprisingly to me, approach so that most business owners can say, these are some of the things I need to address. Hardly any of them are being approached. Can you walk us through some of the basic ideas?
Absolutely. You know, recognizing that for most business owners, their business is their largest asset. It's probably going to impact their retirement strategy. We need to protect that. We need to protect the business. We need to protect income. So it affects all these different 6 areas of planning. And so what we like to do is look at the business owner holistically and say, you know what? There's a number of different things where we can get started, but let's look at, let's understand the value of the business, what role that's going to play in your transition strategy, and make sure that you have a proper business plan in place, buy-sell plan in place to address those transition needs.
And is evaluation kind of the beginning then, right? I mean, because I think a lot of business owners say, I don't even really know what I think it's worth.
You know, we get that all the time. Business owners, sometimes they know the value of their business or the approximate value. Sometimes they're using book value, assets minus liabilities. What we oftentimes do is just start with an informal, complementary business valuation. Let's understand the value, what role it plays in some of these other issues.
Okay. Well, walk me through some of this.
So oftentimes I start with business protection, making sure that we do have a properly structured buy-sell agreement in place. And that's just that legal document that tells us what would happen.
Even with a family-owned business.
Even with a family-owned business.
I'm handing it to my kids.
I might be handing it to my kids. So business protection is a big part of that. Making sure that if something were to happen to the business owner or one of their key employees tomorrow, that we have protection in place. Supplement a retirement plan, recognizing that the business is oftentimes the largest asset. What role is that going to play in retirement? And do we need to add some additional retirement strategies there? Do we need to look at ways to save over and above the 401k limits? Exit planning, when and how are you going to exit your business? Is it going to be on your, is it planned or unplanned? And what is that thoughtful transition going to look like? We want to make sure that your family and your heirs are protected. Estate planning. Oftentimes business owners have very significant estate planning needs, and we want to make sure that they're addressed. Survivorship income. We want to make sure that the family's taken care of if something were to happen tomorrow. And then of course income protection, recognizing that for most business owners, if they became sick or hurt tomorrow or something happened, that they have protected their income to make sure there's money coming into the business to continue to pay the bills, etc.
Now, you have some tools to get started with. Can you show us some of that?
Absolutely. My favorite tool is our informal, or one of my favorite tools is our informal business valuation. We actually start with a very simple process. And so what we like to do with business owners is we take 3 years of tax returns or 3 years of financials, and from there our team of attorneys and CPAs will do an informal business valuation. Oftentimes a starting point for discussions with tax and legal advisors. So what we want to do is just peg the value of the business. Once we know the value of the business and what role that's going to play in the succession plan, then we can determine, do we have enough money for retirement? Do we need to add a supplementary retirement plan? What do we need to protect from an income standpoint or from a business planning standpoint? So it starts impacting all those different areas. But you can see it's a very simple fact finder. Again, 12 questions, 3 years of tax returns, 3 years of financials. And this is going to work for most businesses, S-Corps, C-Corps, LLCs. We want businesses that have been around for a while, that have good cash flow. I would say our average client has been around more than 11 years, probably 2, 3, 4 million in revenue.
Well, if you're sitting out there saying, Steve, how do I do this? We have advisors that have teamed up with Sherry's company. So you say, well, all these advice, it sounds great, but how much does that cost? Through the right advisor, through our strategic alliance, you may be able to do this and get a lot of this done for actually very little or to no money, depending upon your situation. So talk to me about when we're looking at this, when we're looking at kind of a complementary informal, show me what that looks like.
The evaluation is pretty simple. And so basically we take the information from the tax returns or the financial statements, and we actually prepare a business valuation using the methods typically used by the IRS. Now we always put book value on there, which typically isn't what we're going to use, but then we'll actually list the other 4 more popular types. our team of attorneys and CPAs will actually share with you which method or which methods would be most appropriate for your business. It's going to be based on your industry, your structure, that kind of thing. So there's some that make more sense than others. Again, this is just an estimate. Now our team, we've had clients that have gone for formal valuations, and our team has been within 3 to 4% of formal valuations, but those cost a lot of money. Those can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 a year for a formal valuation. This is complimentary. This is so that we can start the planning process and start thinking about what does our asset look like, how are we going to transition out of that, make it a liquid asset down the road.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk about some of the needs you're going to need to have, some of the things you can actually work with, tools, so that you can look at some of your own business planning and move forward in your future. We'll do this right after. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And keeping more of your money is even harder these days with high taxes, fund expenses, and fees for financial advice. And when you consider the uncertainty of the market and the rising cost of living, the purchasing power of your dollar is constantly at risk. But a tax-deferred annuity with an inflation rider can be the most cost-effective way to generate increasing annual income without market volatility. For more information on how annuities may work for you, just email me at steve@thenameofthegame.tv and ask for our free annuity information. Well, welcome back to our second segment where, of course, we're with business specialist Sherry Flint. Sherry, when we're talking about a business, and I'm thinking, well, I'm a baby boomer, I'm in my 60s, I'm a closely held family, my family's involved, my daughter's going to inherit my business, and I keep thinking, well, isn't that enough? I just put it in my will, and wasn't that enough? And it isn't enough, is it?
It isn't enough. Only 37% of business owners have a buy-sell agreement or written strategy on how they're going to leave their business, whether it's planned or unplanned. And what we see is, what you want to do is you want to have a written agreement that identifies a buyer and a seller. We want to fix the value of the property or the value of the business for tax and estate tax purposes. We want to make sure that there's liquidity in the event something does happen. That is a written legal document that clearly outlines what would happen if a death, a disability, a divorce, a business owner wants to retire. What's going to happen? Who's going to buy it? How much are you going to pay for it? And when is that going to happen?
So we're trying to anticipate life's variables that could be challenges, and we need to try to do this on a document, and then after we do this, we have to fund our will, so to speak. Funding
is very important. I'll tell you, Steve, we do complimentary business buy-sell review agreements. And we oftentimes, for those 37% of businesses that actually have a document, we'll review them. Oftentimes they're out of date, they haven't been updated, they forgot to add a business partner, but we typically find some gaps in funding. So if you have an agreement with a business partner or you're transferring it to a family member and there's an agreement on what the purchase price is or what the formula for the purchase price or what the buyout agreement is, there needs to be funding to make sure you have the liquidity to make it happen. Having a buy-sell agreement with no adequate funding or without adequate funding oftentimes is worse than not having a buy-sell agreement at all.
Well, talk to me about your checklist here. I noticed that you have 6 basic priorities. Can you walk me through it?
Yeah, in the first part of our segment, we talked about the 6 needs of business planning. And oftentimes for business owners, if we throw it all at them, it becomes daunting, right? Where do I start? So we say, there's 6 different areas: exit planning, retirement income, business protection, that's the buy-sell agreement. We also have on there wealth transfer, survivorship income, and finally the business protection. So what we want to look in each of those different categories, what are they and how important is that to the business owner? Let's prioritize. Where do we want to start? So oftentimes we'll work with a business owner, they'll say, I'd like to start with business planning, just a buy-sell agreement. I want to have that written legal document. Okay. Now that we've done that, we've done evaluation of the company, we know how much it's worth. The next thing might be, for example, retirement income. Okay, well, if I know the value of my business and how much it's going to be worth in 10 years when I retire, do I have enough? We have a retirement gap calculator. We can help figure out, do we need supplemental retirement?
And I think one of the points you're bringing here is that many small businesses forget that. I think small businesses, my retirement is the sale of my business.
Absolutely.
That's my exit strategy. That's how I'm playing. But a lot of times I found out that's not going to be right and it's not going to be adequate. And your dreams are not matching up to the financial issues.
Exactly.
So this helps you walk through this, and it kind of gives you a good wake up. I want to wake up now 10 years out. I don't want to be thinking about this tomorrow when I'm retiring.
Right. A lot of business owners have 10 years plus to plan for their exit strategy. So you know what? Let's get a handle on it now. Let's go through these. Let's prioritize what's important. Let's make sure that we have you protected adequately and that we're planning properly for the future.
One of the most neglected out of your 6 to me, being my experience in 30 years, is survivor. Dad dies. It seems like everything's transferred to the business, but the surviving spouse always seems to be kind of shorted in the overall planning idea. Talk to me a little bit about survivorship protection, especially for the spouse.
Well, and see, that's key. So let's say you and I were business partners and something happened to me tomorrow. What would happen? My husband, he doesn't want to come work with you. What do we do? How do you buy him out of that part of the business? How do you create that liquidity event for him? You know what? By simply having a written legal document that says you're going to buy my half of the business, and here's the purchase price we're going to use, the formula, and then by having insurance on me so that you can get that tax-free death benefit and then buy my share of the business, that provides the liquidity for the surviving spouse, right? We want to leave our family better off when we're gone.
Now, some of the things that you do, I noticed that you do, is you're into tax mitigation a lot. You're trying to help people out, the team that you play with. It's one of the things we're trying to do is not only we're selling the business, we're trying to sell it in the right way to make sure the impact of taxation doesn't just take away a third of everything we just did.
Absolutely. I rely heavily on our team of attorneys and CPAs. Whether you're transferring it to a family-owned business, we want to take advantage of any tax laws that might be out there. We want to look holistically at the business, what part it plays in the estate, and what's the most tax-efficient way to transition it. Are we going to sell it to an insider? Are we going to sell it to a key employee or a family member? Or are we going to sell it in the market in general? And there's a lot of considerations that go into that. But tax mitigation is important. Nobody wants to pay more money on taxes.
Especially if I'm selling my business is a big part of my retirement income. I don't want to get hit twice. I get hit at the sale and I get hit at my income side. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to mitigate that. Now, when I'm looking at all these ideas, it seems daunting. I have to say, it seems daunting. This is this is even a long list, and it seems to be a lot. When I'm doing my first interview, what kind of information do I have to collect so the advisor can actually do a good job for me?
I think it's pretty easy to get started. What we want to do, I like to start with evaluation. Let's figure out what the current value of the business is, what role it's going to play, and what it's going to be worth in 5 or 10 years, right? It's very easy to make those projections. For that, I have 12 questions. Name a company, corporate structure, number of owners. I need 3 years of tax returns and 3 years of financials. From there, we can use that as a jumping off point for a lot of things, and oftentimes we start with the buy-sell funding. Let's put that legal agreement in place, make sure you're properly protected. You know what? Do you have any key employees that you need to keep around to help drive that revenue so your business is worth what you want it to be when you transition? Supplemental retirement. Do we want to look at other ways to save properly for retirement, maybe in a tax-advantaged way? So it's a very simple and easy process to get started. But again, you know what? We want to make sure that we're identifying what areas the business owner wants to start with and prioritize them.
Well, that's our show for today. It sounds like a lot. I want to thank Sherry Flint for being my special guest and today's Money Mentor. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas you've heard on our show, always consult your tax advisor or your legal counsel. And as the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. See you next week.